Are you ready? Okay.
Okay.
We're just doing our exercise.
Okay.
You know, getting a little shadow boxing in there. Okay.
Great.
All right. Oh my gosh.
We are here in the WRTI Performance Studio. I am Susan Lewis, and this is Ray Chen, and it's cold, which is why we were warming up. Here is Ray's brand new album, The Golden Age. Ray, welcome to WRTI.
Thanks, Susan. Thanks for having me here.
Where have you been recently?
Well, my last group of concerts was in Europe. So I was playing near Munich in a castle. So it was very, very cool. The Europe is still dotted with a lot of these old aristocratic families who have castles, and this particular castle was in a small town called Wolfegg, and they have a music festival there. So I was playing there, and before I was also in Asia for a tour. I was doing China and also Korea. So there was a lot of concerts. Yeah, it's an ongoing thing.
Ongoing thing. Well, I'm glad you had time to come to the WRTI. You were born in Taiwan, grew up in Australia, and started to play the violin really young.
That's right. Yeah. So I started when I was 4 years old. I had a toy guitar that I kind of just like to strum along with normally. But then one day, I guess I saw an image of a violinist somewhere. I decided to put the guitar underneath my chin and together with a chopstick, like pretend to kind of just like play this new instrument. And so my parents thought it was super adorable. And so they got me a violin for my 4th birthday. Yeah. I mean, we also had a piano in the house, but I just never took to the piano. I was super intimidated by it. It was just this giant instrument. And as a kid, it feels even bigger. It's even an even bigger instrument. But whereas the violin, it was always perfect for you. It's always the right size because you start from whatever size you need. So I started from a 1/8, I think, or 1/16, and then it grows with you when you're ready. So it really is a part of you. The violin, as you can see, like the whole setup of the instrument and the posture, it's not really natural. That's why I think the violin is such a difficult instrument to learn, because it's all balancing on like a single point, right? You've got like that all the sound that you need is to draw a sound, all has to be super. If you crush the sound, that's what it sounds like. And then if you're too light, it'll just be too airy, So there's a lot that, yeah. I mean, the violin, they say, a beginner on the violin sounds far worse than a beginner on a piano.
Well, and it's such a personal instrument. How long have you had this one?
Oh, this particular one I've had since I've been playing for 4 years now. So yeah, it's you develop a relationship with the instrument. It's and you have, just like relationships, you have good days and bad days. Mostly good days though. And yeah, it's each instrument has its own character. A lot of people ask me, "Oh, what's the difference between playing a Stradivarius, and a new instrument?" I mean, well, the difference could be like 300 years. But more than that, I think it's something that, a Strad, I always say a Strad already has it's like a preset EQ system within the instrument. It already has the right balance, and you just literally draw the bow across the string, and out comes this special quality of color. Whereas with a modern instrument, it's like an open lane. There's no presets, so you have an open spectrum of sound, and if you have to personally pick out the sounds by drawing the bow, to have, if you need a deep sound, it could be, or it could be shallow. There's just, and it's so subtle, especially if you're right next to it, which is really difficult for us because our ear is literally right next to the instrument.
Right.
But in a concert hall, that multiplies with the distance.
Wow. So, and when you tour and you play in all these different venues, I guess you have to adjust a little bit for the place you're playing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because your instrument is your instrument, but the hall is also part of your instrument. So whatever space you're playing in becomes part of your acoustical instrument.
Wow. Well, now, growing up in Australia, you started winning all sorts of awards. You, at 9, performed at the opening celebration of the 1998 Winter Olympics in Japan, I understand?
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, that was a very special occasion. It marked the I made my decision then that, I had to, traveling to Japan, I got to, try new food, meet new people. We stayed with the host family, and we're still in touch with them actually years later. And of course to play music, that I felt like, wow, if this little box can take me around the world doing this very thing, and traveling and experiencing these new experiences, these special experiences, then this is what I want to do. So that was that occasion.
That was key.
Yeah.
So you came to Curtis when you were 15.
Yes.
And then around 19, you won first prize in the Yehudi Menuhin competition.
That's right.
The next year, you won the Queen Elizabeth Music Competition in Brussels.
That's right.
And you've just been doing more and more since then.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think it's important that I've always had the philosophy in life that, you have to keep trying. Now, putting in the effort, even despite losing or failing at competitions or auditions, but also despite winning them as well, so that you're always continuing your development as a musician, as an artist, as a human being. That's incredibly important, that you don't give up, before you've made it, and then when you've made it, so to speak, there are certain plateaus, I think, that you still stay grounded and humble and continue to learn.
Well, it's interesting because you have been recording for the last decade, I guess, and you've recorded Tchaikovsky, Mendelssohn, and Franck Violin Sonata and Tchaikovsky and Mendelssohn concertos. And this new album, Ray Chen, The Golden Age, is curated and selected all by you, I understand.
That's correct, yeah. So each album is kind of its own thing. I mean, this one I'm really proud of because, we have a theme. It's the Golden Age, and that obviously, for me, it's kind of a tip of the hat towards these great old school players, Heifetz, Milstein, Oistrakh, Kreisler, list could go on. At the same time, and they always did their own arrangements, right? So they arranged, like on this album, we've got tracks like by Kreisler, Syncopation, or we've got like Summertime arranged by Heifetz, and so that's why I decided, okay, I've got this amazing string quartet. Well, it's got amazing people in it. I can't say, but including, they're all members of the Berlin Phil, and we do our own arrangements. So I figured, why don't we also include it? Like, I thought I need to include these new arrangements on the album, so that the Golden Age could be a thing of the past, but it could also be right now, that we're making it right now.
So what does the Golden Age of the violin mean to you?
Well, that's exactly what I was getting to. The Golden Age of the violin could be the Heifetz era, the Oistrakh era. It could also be the current era. It could be right now. It could also be in the future. Where I think that we, in classical music, we're so steeped in tradition. We always are looking to the past, but we need to look to the future as well, because especially in today's day and age of social media and the uncertainty of the future of classical music, that we should be, it's good to acknowledge and be worried even slightly, but to spend most of our efforts in making sure that there is a future. I think that's very important. So that's kind of like what I was aiming for on this album.
Well, and the album, as you say, has some of the classics by Bruch and Debussy and Chrysler, but it's bookended by these arrangements, these current arrangements by, tell me how to pronounce this name, Kahns?
Yeah, so Stefan Kahns, he is the cellist in our quartet.
Okay.
And by what I said before, that we were arranging it, I mean, he's really the mastermind behind the arrangements. And I remember the night before we were recording the tracks for the album, we were up until like 2:30 a.m. in the morning, close to 3 a.m., just trying to finish these arrangements, because I mean, I guess inspiration, that's when inspiration comes, it happens when it happens. I mean, there are famous stories of Mozart and like the deadline, the performance, the morning of the performance, him like just scrambling on stage and having sheets of music on stage, but they were actually blank, and the king just being like, using the telescope to like lens to like be like, saying something like that, like basically essentially calling him out on it. And Mozart, of course, was totally, unabashed. He was like always very, very like, he knew he was comfortable in his genius as well.
So were there any tracks on here that you had particular fun with? Let's say Waltzing Matilda.
Yeah, Waltzing Matilda is definitely a very, I think it's new for most people who are outside of Australia. It's kind of like the unofficial Australian national anthem, and that's where I grew up in Brisbane. And it tells about the story of an Australian kind of wanderer, gypsy. He wanders upon a herd of sheep, and he decides to steal a sheep, puts it in his kind of bag, and then the cops are alerted to him, and then they have a chase, and then instead of being caught, he decides he'd rather be caught. He would rather throw himself into the river, but then he drowns. So it's actually quite a tragic story, but the tune is very jaunty. It's always like, Waltzing Matilda, Waltzing Matilda. It's always like it never deviates really. It never really develops from that. You don't hear any sadness in the tune. Right. So, of course we decided, okay, well, I decided that I wanted us to tell the story. This was originally a poem done by an Australian, very famous Australian poet called Banjo Patterson. And he wrote the words to the lyrics, and then it was later set to music. I decided, I want us to tell the story of the music, of what it was, the poem in the music. And so that's why we have themes like Dies Irae, it's like a monastic, medieval chant that's, it represents death. And so, but at the same time, I also said, we decided that we're going to borrow a little bit of American kind of bluegrass. So we have we have that, so we have that kind of road trip vibe to it. And so what happens when you combine a medieval, monastic, monastery chant with that kind of American bluegrass? Well, you get like kind of like a bit of a Highway to Hell, AC/DC, like rock and roll. It's that kind of that ongoing thing. So it was really interesting to see these worlds coming together, completely different things, but like, being the ones to conceptualize that was really cool.
It is really cool. So you work with this quartet, this Made in Berlin quartet, a lot. That's
right. Well, we're actually, so we're very good friends. The violinist, the other violinist in the group, Noah Bendix Bogley, he's an American, and he actually, he and I met in 2009. We were both at the Queen Elizabeth competition. We were both in the finals. Now, part of the ordeal one goes through in this competition is that when you reach the finals, you're locked up in this kind of castle, and your devices are all taken away. So no cell phones, no laptops, nothing, and no outside communication with the public or any of your teachers, because part of it, you have to learn this new piece in 1 week that's written expressly for the competition, as well as practice your concerto. So I did Tchaikovsky Violin Concerto and play a sonata as well. So it's a lot of, and up until this point, you've already been competing for like 3 weeks straight. You've done like 3 other rounds already. So here's that kind of, I guess the motivation is to practice, but when you're done practicing 8 to 10 hours a day, you still got to come out and eat your meals. And so it kind of, we were also forced us to also acknowledge, socialize with the other competitors, and Noah and I just immediately hit it off. So that's and then when he moved to Berlin, he's now the concertmaster, one of the concertmasters at Berlin Phil. I said, well, let's do something together, because I was also moving to Berlin as well. So
cool.
Yeah, that's
so there are 3 tracks of these are with Made in Berlin, right?
Exactly. Yeah. There's the Debussy Clair de Lune, which is, well, that one is more of a transcription. It's traditional, so we didn't really change too much in it. And then we've also got the Waltzing Matilda, that we changed a lot. And then the Satie. So we picked up this Gymnopody number 1. It's but then we kind of made it into a little more upbeat. And then so it's a very, it still has that French vibe to it. The melody is there. In one little section, there's even a little bit of William Tell overture in there. But we just wanted to show. It's kind of like what I believe in as classical musicians we should do, is to show a different side of something, to show someone, hey, this could be also seen this way. Mm-hmm. I think that's what art is about, to open people's eyes and ears and minds, even to, you've always known it to be this way, but it could also be this way. It could also be seen this way, and why not? And so, because the original Satie Gymnopody is a very melancholy, very kind of rainy day vibe piece, but instead now we've got something that's very like spring, like morning, and that's it's a very, I'm very proud of what we've achieved.
Well, and it's great to have these juxtaposed with works like the Bruch Violin Concerto, which is so well known and famous.
Right. Well, that was another thing. I think that's a problem with when you're talking about any kind of a classical music recording. It's like, do we really need another Bruch Violin Concerto? And you have to ask, even though it's a difficult question, especially being the one recording it, you have to ask that to yourself, because does the world need another Bruch Violin Concerto? And I think the answer is, well, yes, if it's good. But if it's good, it's kind of like, do we need another James Bond film? We already know what's going to happen. We already know that there's going to be like the bad guy, and then the casino chips, and the tuxedo, and the guns. Yeah, there's just, but then it's the stuff in between. It's the stuff that the director of this, the screenwriter, the producers, the actors, they tell a story between those iconic elements. So here we have a Bruch Violin Concerto, but it's then what? If you just did it exactly the same as it's always been done before, then you're just remaking a film, and the remake is never going to be as good. You have to completely. What I mean by remake is like if you're just trying to simply copy.
Right.
What you really have to do is completely make anew. And that's something that, can be difficult, but I think that one of the key elements to doing it well is to absorb the current, you know, I mean, as a musician, as an artist, what you're doing is like is to not try and think too much about trying to emulate a certain like era or formula, but to just let it pass through you. You are acting as the natural filter, and then it just if you've you know developed in the right way, what comes out on through the other end is just something that is going to be unique. You don't have to worry about making it unique for the sake of being unique. You know, that's that can sound very unnatural.
Right. Well, and it's so cool the way you're integrating the works from the past and new arrangements and by contemporary arrangers and you, and it's a great way to carry this music into the future, as you say. And another way you're doing that is with social media, because I've noticed that you have a YouTube channel and you have comedy videos, which are really funny.
Thank you.
And engaging. You have an inspirational series where you talk about
motivational,
yes.
like insecurity. Yeah, that's something that I've kind of started exploring more recently.
And this is a series for musicians dealing with issues that they may be facing.
Yeah, well, not only musicians. I think it's just any young person who's in any field, or not any person, people, I mean, who are older as well. Everyone faces insecurity in whatever they do. I think it's an everyday thing. It's a constant battle, and especially in something that is like classical music, something that you've been working all your life on, and yet because you know, I think most people are not born where they can just wake up in the morning and look in the mirror and say, I'm the best. It just doesn't, that's just not normal. If you do that, you're probably a psychopath. But normal people don't do that. And so how do you like truly inside to acknowledge that? So it is a constant thing that you have to deal with. And as a musician, you know, I just know that, you know, you start out when you first touch the instrument at the age, you know, of 4, 5, 6, whatever, that young age, you just feel joy. It's like a toy. It's so much fun, and you don't think about the consequences, and so you're free. But then, you know, you decide that you want to pursue this path, and so you become more serious. And the day you decide to become serious is the day where you have to let go of being free, because now it's time for you to learn what Bach should sound like, what Mozart should sound like. You can't do this in this piece. You can't deviate from the notes. You know, you have to, it becomes all about what you can't do. And so little by little you feel like your field of inspiration, motivation, and honestly, creativity is narrowing. And until finally a lot of people just simply can't find the joy anymore. They've forgotten, because you've spent so much time, you know, you're worrying about technique, your intonation, your sound, all the stylistic, you know, attributes that the piece should have. And I guess the video is just to just simply let people know that, you know, to hang in there, that, you know, I've been through that. I know what it's like, and that you're not alone.
And it doesn't have to be that way. Because
exactly.
You and your career, I also note that you have a series on musical heroes, and that was wonderful. You seem to be using the internet and social media to reach out to people and engage them, and it's a great thing for classical music. And congratulations on your CD,
Thank you.
Golden Age, Ray Chen. It's fabulous. Thanks for coming in today.
Oh, thanks for having me. Yeah.
And we look forward to the next time we meet.
Yeah, looking forward to that. Thank you.
Thank you.